Bonjour my dear friends and welcome to the part 2 Volkswagen Mark III transmission installation. And why we started all that process? Because our torque convector seal was leaking. Here's a replacement part, SKF high quality aftermarket parts. Before you install, compare the seal you're going to install with the original seal you removed from the transmission. Make sure all specs the same. Compare the inner outer diameter, check the lip, check the thickness of the seal. Otherwise, if you install a wrong seal, it will leak, it won't seal properly, or won't even fit. Then you pull out a seal, you wasted a new seal and spend the money. Alright, we're ready to install. I'm using the PVC fitting. That's helps to cover the diameter of the seal, or you can use a chunk of PVC pipe which fits over the seal with the same diameter, or find the seal installer kit if you have. Apply light coat of grease, make sure it's lubricated and won't be dry rubber on metal contact with the torque convector. That will save the seal and make everything nice. Wipe any residues, dust or whatever can be in a fit hole where the seal sits, and clean that input shaft surface around as well, and place the seal by hand. Make sure it goes evenly. The seal is round, make sure it's not crooked or sided on an angle. Now time for your fitting that chunk of black pipe, and start tapping with the hammer all way around. And see, I turn the hammer sideways. It helps to apply the pressure evenly. Check it out, look to make sure it's going straight, not on an angle. Keep tapping, don't apply too much pressure, it doesn't need lots of power to apply. Make sure it just fits straight and won't go any further. It will stop eventually. Check it out and you probably remember how old seal was there fitting. Alright, seal is in, you check, yeah, look at that, it's installed, it's in place, it's ready to be used. Nice, and seal is installed. Check that, oh beauty, I love it. Alright, we got that done. These are those splines and a torque convector for the parts, the same spline on the input shaft, and the splines for the pump. And then we check in the fitment. We were using the just measuring line. Apply a little bit of grease to the torque convector input like that. Just will help to go that guy easier. You see those little notches, they fit in the same spot on the pump, whereas the torque convector sits. Alright, we're ready to install. That's the important part. Make sure it's all weighing. Just start slowly. Try not to rest that torque convector on the seal, because that seal might start leaking if you will let it sit on the seal, not being engaged all the way in. And you see there's 3 rows of different splines to get engaged with the proper position. And just try to wiggle up and down from side to side, turn it back and forth. It will eventually go in. It might take a little bit of time, just like that. And check with the measuring line. See, that should be the torque convector is installed correctly when the distance between the torque convector surface and transmission housing flange is 21 millimeter. You see that? Measure, that's important. Make sure everything engaged inside the torque convector, all splines are coupled. that's what you want to see. Just that's a little important part, all about the numbers. And now we're ready to install. We also replace the rear main seal. I will put a link up above, you can check it out. There will be one more video. Now slide your transmission jack under the transmission. You see those pins, holes on the transmission housing, and those 3 torque convector studs, they should fit with the pins with the drive plate holes, and those 2 studs should fit with the transmission housing. This is how you do it. You need to align those holes and studs that we're going to do right now. Right, start jacking up a transmission, go up to the top where it aligns, just lift it up, push it in. Look at that, it's coming closer and closer. Alright, well, close enough. Adjust the tilt of the transmission. Then you can, if you need it, adjust the tilt from side to side. Make sure it aligns. You have the 3 dimensions to work on. Alright, check those pins. Make sure they align with the drive plate holes. That's important. Otherwise, it won't be connected. Any possibilities and it's not there. Okay. Alright. Just last time check the fitment of the torque convector. 21mm should be, and slowly start moving toward the engine. You see, just let yourself a little play up and down. Alright, I see that pin got in. There is a bolt right at the top. I align those holes and start tightening those bolts by hand. I go just a few turns, then start with the wrench. It helps to pull the transmission. My bottom pins are in. I started from the top, 1 bolt and then another bolt. Just do few turns. You don't need to go all the way in, just keep it loose, and then it will help to get everything perfectly aligned. As you can see, that torque convector studs in that drive plate already. Alright, you see that's all coupled, it's connected, there's no gap. Bolts are just tight enough to hold the transmission in place. So we keep tightening. I go on a star-cross pattern, up on the bottom, on the top, and next on the bottom, on the top. Just pull it equally, and then you torque them. Torque with the torque wrench. Start with the top, go to the bottom, then top, bottom. There's 4 bolts and 2 bolts will be for the starter. The torque on the bottom and the top. Click. Insert the axle into the knuckle. Don't let it hang because too much pressure on the boots. Then we're going to put those torque convector nuts back. Apply a lock threader. Oh, drops. That will protect the threads and prevent the nuts to get loose. I shouldn't. I always do. Blue thread locker is a good stuff. Alright. We're underneath. First nut is ready. Started by hand. Just nice. See that mark? Red paint marker. There is our first one. I just put the torque convector in the same holes. how we remove it, and then started turning that little nut with a wrench, just enough until it stops. Second one, turn the crankshaft with a ratchet, always go clockwise until second stud is showing up. Here we go, that is a stud. Okay, ready for a second nut, same thing. You want that torque convector be tied evenly. You don't want to torque one nut and completely to the specs and then go to another. You start them evenly by hand, go a little bit with the wrench until it stops. We don't need to torque it at this time. And then the last one, turn crankshaft clockwise with a ratchet. There's a big bolt at the crankshaft pulley and last nut. We have the lock threader ready. Started that one. That is the last one. 3 of them only. And then we know 3 of them tied it by hand with a little wrench after that. See, I'm not holding the crankshaft from turning, and now I'm locking the crankshaft against the drive shaft and I'm ready to tight it. I cannot fit my torque wrench there. I know approximately how that should be torqued, and that's enough. And I torque them. It just goes by feelings. I pretty confident of that, how it's supposed to be, and you just go and torque it 1, and then you go to the 3rd until you're done. 1, 2, 3. Put that torque convector cover plate back. Torque those 2 bolts. Time for engine for subframe or power steering rack support, whatever you called. That is, the power steering is still hanging. There's our bolts for the attaching the subframe. Apply light coat of blue thread locker and those 2 little guys as well. Okay, put it over the jack and start lifting up. It's very uncomfortable to do it by hand, or if you have 4 hands, it might be done that way. Now is the time to align the power steering bolts first. Actually, it's studs. Then you need to align with the power steering rack holes. You can see I done that already, and those are nuts. I think it's 13 mils. Go and start it by hand. Don't tie it first and go to another. Go just by start it all of them by hand, and then you go to torque them. See? Now I put in the bolts holding the subframe to the vehicle chassis. All of them I started. I align the holes. I don't go all the way. I just go half with thread of the bolts. Keep them loose. It gives me some mobility to align the holes, because we still need to install the engine mounts and those supports for the transmission. As you can see, I still have a crack gap. I don't torque anything, don't tight. Just give yourself that flexibility to align the rest of the fasteners. Okay, then the back engine support mount we need to tie it as well. There's a bolt. I need a long extension to reach there. When it's aligned, start tightening that. That one you can tighten if you want. that won't affect anything. And over top there's a little bracket for the electrical connector. Tie that. Done. Put air intake pipe back. Tie that hose clamp. Make sure it won't leak. Simple as it is. Very easy design. It's mono injector. Alright, there is a transmission rear mount. There's a bracket. Needs to attach to the top of the transmission housing and then to the subframe. Start those bolts at the transmission housing side by hand. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy peasy. You have idea. They're not tight yet. And then I started with a wrench. I tighten and torque them on the transmission side, and then I need to align the bracket with the subframe. Just pry it against the starter housing with a long enough pry bar to align that hole, because that won't fit probably right away. As soon as the hole align, torque it. There's a front engine mount. Faced that way, you see that little V-shaped notch faced towards the engine. That's how that upper bracket fits on that bushing. Okay, there is a bracket for the starter, and also that starter is another 2 bolts which hold the transmission and engine together tight. This one just for the bracket. Alright, and the top one you need to tie it, and that's little guy on the side. Okay, here's our starter motor. Put him back, he's ready. It'll fit only in one possible way. Yeah, like that. So starter solenoid should face up and won't fit. You won't have a chance. Long bolts, 2 of them. Oh, go all the way in. And again, start it by hand. Make sure it's not going across the thread. If it won't align, just wiggle up and down. Take a look why it's not going straight or it's hard. Clean the threads. Now we have all our mounts and brackets and bolts in place. We can actually start tightening the bolts and we can torque them. Torque the subframe bolts and those. Now the time for lower ball joint. Align. There's 3 holes with the holes on a lower control arm. Apply your favorite blue lock thread. Okay, we aligning those bolts holes with the ball joint and the lower control arm, and your bolt's supposed to be clean. Run a chase thread chaser, or if you have a new bolts, good to go. And started them by hand like that. You see, it's just so clean and simple. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There's a passenger side, and same thing on a driver's side. Alright, and then tie them with the wrench. 13mm socket you needed for this application. 1, 2, 3. You have an idea. Turn. Don't rush the things. Relax. Take it easy. It's all doable. And now you torque it. It's a small 13mm bolt. Don't overtake them. You can snap. Just don't go crazy. If you're interested for tour specs, you can write the comments and ask me any questions you have. No problem, I will answer much as I can. And torque the bolts, 3 of them. Very important for your safety, make sure the bolts are tight. Alright. Also, don't forget to torque your tie rod and nut. Click, click. All good. On both sides. Now that's balancer weight you need to put back on a subframe. Old school design. Make sure the both parts are balanced. Just a solid chunk of steel. Put it in place where you took it off. Favorite blue thread locker there. Transmission shifter cables attached to the shifter. Feed it through the hole like that. And put a bolt, tied it in place. And now we have those we have coolant lines to attach to the transmission cooler unit on top of it, on the housing. All those electrical connectors, sensors, wires, battery, bottom bracket support. We'll put in that back. Power steering reservoir. That should be attached. Remember, we didn't disconnect the power steering line. We just undo the power steering reservoir and put it aside. Now time to put it back. Install your battery. Make sure it's charged. We'll need to start our vehicle. And all electronics is just signs of the connections. Tie the bottom bracket. Clean the terminals with a terminal cleaner brush. Good connection is the key. Alright, same with the battery clamps. Give them a good scrubby clean. Scuff, scuff, scuff. Okay, it's taking too long. And now, time to install the wheels. That's pretty much it. Okay, start a cross pattern with a lug nut. Alright, 1, 2, 3, cross pattern. While our vehicle's still above the ground, it's still sitting on the blocks. You see that? It's still up in the air, low vehicle down. We put a new transmission filter and fluid that will be in the video. You can check that card. I will put link in the description. Didn't want to make it too long. Now time to torque the bolts. Alright, cross pattern. And time to torque the lug nut. There's a CV axle lock nut. Yeah, you need to torque that to the specs. That torqued, all good. We did it. Didn't take us even long. This special socket, axle nut socket. I mean 30 mils deep socket. Okay, I'll put in our battery clamps on the terminals. Tied them up. Okay, that sounds done.